Oof. After work, letting my hair down, about to talk about some Wonder Woman. Hey guys, it's Bree. I've been having a lot of thoughts, as happens to me. I hope it probably happens to you too, so that I'm not just the lonely crazy lady. But I went and saw Wonder Woman maybe a week and a half ago, and I've been thinking about it ever since. I have been watching reviews and reading articles all about it, as I would expect you have since you're here. And I was doing this all the way up into the actual release. And a couple of things have constantly kind of stuck out to me. Wonder Woman is always going to be hailed as like a feminist icon. Not gonna lie. And that is for a number of reasons, including the fact that she's just a really prominent female character. I mean, what that basically comes down to is that representation idea that we always talk about, right? If you don't see yourself in fiction very often, it really matters when you see yourself. I mean, let's face it, you can always be like, well, so-and-so sucks. But if you're a white male, you can go ahead and be like, yo, but look at Han. And you can't always do that as a woman. There are just a fewer number of people to choose from. And so those representations matter a lot more. If you're Latino, or if you are African American, or if you are Asian, or bi, or trans, it really matters when you see yourself or characters who have that same identity represented to you on screen. But that's not the primary thing that I want to talk about. So about a week and a half ago, I went and saw Wonder Woman. And I walked into the theater, and I sat down and I watched the movie, and about halfway through the movie, I started crying. Surprising me, because I'm not a big movie crier. If you're a woman who grew up in geekdom, or who is embracing geekdom as an adult, Wonder Woman is really mega important. For a number of reasons, right? Like, not only is she the one big bad lady superhero, right? But she's also proof. Proof that women have been there all along. The critiques and reviews that I hear about Wonder Woman tend to either be like, oh my god, finally, a superhero little girls can look up to. And then on the other hand, we have a lot of like, well, what do you expect? Comics has always been a boys' club. And both of them kind of drive me up the wall a little bit. And I think because they fundamentally misunderstand the things I think are important about Wonder Woman, or they don't pay attention. And it's hard to explain that because, well, one, there's no way that I'm going to be like talking to the New York Times and they're gonna like respond to me, right? Like, that's not gonna happen. I mean, hello, hi. I have like 900 followers on YouTube. Not exactly like a big player. But also because I'm not sure that people think that we're even talking about the same question. When I went and saw Wonder Woman, I started crying in the middle of the movie. There's a scene where Wonder Woman saves the day, right? She saves this little town. And she's standing on top of the clock tower in the middle of the town, and people are cheering for her, right? And they're cheering her on not because she's, you know, a woman who saved their town, but because she saved their town. And for me, that was significant. I'm really excited to see women in comic movies. Really, really excited. And it made me more excited to see it done as something that, while acknowledges Wonder Woman's femininity, acknowledges that she is a woman and her identity is such, acknowledges that that means that when she goes into the regular human world, she has to behave and act a certain way, also lets her be strong and powerful independent of that. She's not badass because she is a woman who can save the day. She's a badass because she can save the day, and she also happens to be a woman. Not to say, of course, that both of those aren't equally important aspects or that they aren't intertwined. Wonder Woman isn't the savior of like geek kind because it's a movie about a woman who saves the day. It is because it is evidence that we have been there all along and that the comics world has to kind of finally fess up to it. You know, one of the parts about this that has been really important to me is not the conversation about Wonder Woman as a character. Insofar as, is she good? Is she a good character or not? It's this conversation about why Wonder Woman is popular, why Wonder Woman is a character that matters, whether Wonder Woman really is feminist or not, right? All of this to me is much more important. Because, let's face it, we do have some strong women in film. We've got Buffy, we've got Leia, we've got all sorts of characters who are women and who are badass, right? The problem with them being mostly that they are kind of second fiddle in the storylines. They don't often take that front role. They're kind of backseat to the Hans and the Lukes of their lives. And yes, we've had female superheroes before. We've had Elektra and Catwoman and the Black Widow. Yes, there have been female superheroes, right? But again, they're backseat, right? It's kind of like we put them in not just in the passenger, but in the passenger backseat for people to like know that they're there, but not pay too much attention. And so we get this narrative that comics has always been a boys' club, that geekdom has always been about guys, and that is why we've had this like big uptick in men in movies as opposed to women. And it's such bullshit. Let's just be honest. In the same way as we have always fought is true, we have always been geeks is true. If you look at the history of comics, and I'm using comics here because it is of course the root of superheroes, you're not seeing like one or two women. You see a lot of women behind the scenes. There's Dorothy Woolfolk, who edited for DC Comics. There's Ramona Fradon, who did the art for Aquaman. There's Rachel Pollack, who did Doom Patrol for Vertigo. Elizabeth Holloway Marston, Olive Byrne, Jeanette Kahn, Pia Guerra. Like, these are women who have been a part of comics, and they've been a part of comics for a long time. There were women editors on comics. There were women artists in comics, going back to the start of comics as an art form. But we have this perception that only little boys buy comics, right? Like, it's only the 12-year-old kid who's coming in on his bike. He buys a handful of candy, a Coke, and grabs his weekly comics. And aside from the fact that that is a lot of that is anecdotal because we weren't keeping fantastic track of our statistics at that point, especially marketing statistics for something as like ridiculously easy to do as do a walk-in purchase. It ignores the fact that media consumption doesn't stop at the initial purchaser. You can go ahead, raise your hand if you know who the Kardashians are. I know just about everything about the Kardashian family, and I have never once watched an episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. But I can tell you that Scott Disick has a drug problem, and Kris Jenner's a control freak, and Khloe Kardashian was married to a drug addict named Lamar. Why? Because media has a spreading effect. Just because you are not the primary consumer or the initial consumer does not mean that item stops at that person, that you are not exposed to it. In the same way as you might be sitting in your living room and your mom is watching Jeopardy. There are little kids who pick up their comics after their siblings are done. So even with the assumption that it's just little boys buying comics, that's a really narrow view of how media works. Like I said, women have always been fundamental in comics, and having a movie about Wonder Woman is just proof of that. Wonder Woman in and of itself is like the quintessential female comic. Aside from the fact that its main character is a woman, It was edited by women, largely created by women, and based off of the lives of women. People point at William Moulton Marsden as the creator of Wonder Woman. And that's true. He was a man who went ahead and wrote the stories and got it drawn up and sent it to the editor. What you don't see about that is that that entire comic series was based off of his wives, more or less. His wife Elizabeth was the one who pushed him to go ahead and start Wonder Woman. And his wife Olive was the one upon whom Wonder Woman was actually based. The bracers were things that she wore every day, white bracelets. She looked like his wife Olive. Margaret Sanger, the woman who created Planned Parenthood and who funded the research behind the pill, was his wife's aunt. His first wife, Elizabeth, was a professional with an advanced degree who went to work instead of staying home with the children. And it was both of his wives together who helped him to create the concept of Wonder Woman, who helped him to leverage his creation of the polygraph test and turn it into a tool for storytelling. So for me, while it's really important that Wonder Woman is there as, yes, another character for little girls to look up to, well, it broke my heart with happiness to hear the little 5-year-old in the movie theater lobby telling his mom he wanted to go see Wonder Woman instead of pirates. It's about more than just that. It's about the fact that women have always geeked. I don't know. There's a lot of play around Wonder Woman right now and a lot of people who want to talk about it. So I'm inviting you to talk to me. So go ahead and leave me a comment down below. You know the drill. Comment, like, and subscribe. I'm gonna go on a real long bike right now, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.